Welcome to my channel, Vibes of Life. In today's video, we're diving deep into a story you weren't expecting. A story that might just change the way you see faith, personal growth, and your divine purpose. So, before you scroll away, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're waiting on God to move, while God is actually waiting on you to take the first step? Picture this. A little boy stands on a worn-out basketball court in the heart of Chicago. It's early morning. The sun hasn't even warmed the pavement yet. He's shooting hoops barefoot, determined, focused, but frustrated. Every time he misses a shot, he whispers a silent prayer. God, make me taller, make me strong, help me reach the rim. That boy was Michael Jordan. And what his mother did next would shape not only his future, but inspire a timeless spiritual truth buried deep in Scripture. She didn't just pray over him. She didn't just hope. She took his shoes, filled them with salt, and told him, "Put these on." That moment wasn't just about basketball. It was about faith in action, about believing while moving, about the secret power God hides in the smallest things. And here's where it gets interesting. Why salt? Why shoes? Why would a mother, grounded in faith, turn to something so peculiar, yet so symbolic? The answer, my friend, lies in Scripture, in a wisdom echoed by none other than C.S. Lewis himself, who believed that God's greatest messages are often hidden in ordinary moments. C.S. Lewis preached about the invisible threads God uses to tie heaven to earth. In his sermons, he often spoke of courage, perseverance, and the quiet power of belief. But today, through this story, we explore something deeper, a biblical secret that many overlook. The Bible talks about salt as something sacred. In the book of Leviticus, salt is part of God's covenant. In Matthew 5:13, Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth." But what does that really mean? Salt preserves, it purifies, it heals, it brings flavor. It's small but powerful, just like faith, just like action, just like a boy with big dreams and a mother who knew that sometimes prayers need feet. This story isn't just about Michael Jordan or about salt. It's about you. It's about the moment when God calls you not just to believe, but to prepare, to put something in your shoes, to step into the promise, even before you see the evidence. And just when you think you understand where this story is going, what if I told you the salt wasn't the only secret? What if C.S. Lewis had a deeper message behind every word, pointing to a truth that could unlock something in your own life? Stay with me, because what happens next, you won't see coming. She didn't tell him the salt would make him taller. She didn't promise instant results. But she knew something her son didn't yet understand, that faith doesn't just live in the heart. It lives in the steps we take, in the everyday choices we make, even when we don't see change right away. That simple act, putting salt in a pair of shoes, was more than a ritual. It was a declaration, a bold, quiet way of saying, we're not waiting for God to do everything. We're preparing, expecting, moving. Michael didn't get taller overnight, but he kept putting on those shoes. Day after day he practiced, and every time he stepped onto the court, the salt reminded him, God is in this with me. That kind of faith is what Scripture points to again and again. Think of Noah building an ark with no rain in sight. Think of Abraham walking with nothing but a promise. And in the New Testament, think of Peter stepping out of the boat onto water. There's a pattern here. God gives the vision, but we're the ones who have to take the first step. C.S. Lewis often said that faith isn't just believing something when it makes sense. It's believing in spite of what you see. He once wrote, "Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted in spite of your changing moods." And that's exactly what this story is about. A mother's quiet confidence, a boy's determination, a deeper spiritual truth that most people overlook. But there's something else going on here, something subtle. Salt in biblical times wasn't just used for cooking, it was part of offerings to God. It symbolized preservation of the covenant. And when Jesus called us the salt of the earth, he wasn't just talking about being useful, he was speaking to our identity, our purpose. Salt was valuable, pure, and essential, just like the gifts God plants in each of us. So when Michael's mother poured that salt into his shoes, she was doing more than encouraging him. She was claiming a promise, declaring that he was set apart, that his dreams mattered, and that preparation, no matter how small, was a spiritual act. But here's where things take a turn, because this isn't just a feel-good story about persistence. It's also a warning, a reminder that if we don't recognize what God is asking of us, if we miss the moment to act, we might miss the very thing we were born to do. And in Michael's case, there was one moment, one decision, one challenge that almost stopped everything. It happened in high school. Michael Jordan was cut from the varsity basketball team. Just like that, dream shattered, future unclear. The coach said he was too short, too skinny, not ready, and just like that, doubt crept in. For a teenage boy who had salt in his shoes and a promise in his heart, it felt like the end. He went home, locked himself in his room and cried. Days passed. He didn't want to talk, didn't want to try. The salt didn't seem to matter anymore. What good was belief when life slammed the door shut? But here's the deeper tension. This wasn't just about a boy and a basketball court. It was about identity, about calling, about what we do when God's timing doesn't match our own. That rejection became the first real test of Michael's purpose. Would he give up, or would he keep preparing in the dark when no one was watching? This is where the spiritual battle begins, the moment when faith feels foolish and effort feels wasted, when God seems silent and the world seems louder. From another angle, his mother saw it differently. She didn't comfort him with cliches. She didn't try to fix the pain. She just reminded him, gently, that even salt needs time to do its work. That growth often comes in the quiet. That purpose isn't always revealed in the spotlight, but in what you choose when no one believes in you yet. C.S. Lewis wrote that hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. That's exactly where Michael stood, in the space between heartbreak and hope. But something else was stirring behind the scenes, something no one could see. And just when it seemed like the dream was slipping away for good, an unexpected door was about to open, but only if he had the courage to walk through it. Every morning after that heartbreak, Michael started waking up earlier. Not because someone told him to, but because something inside him refused to quit. He began practicing in silence, in the cold, when the gym was empty. No cheering crowds, no spotlight. Just the sound of sneakers on concrete and the bounce of a basketball echoing off the walls. The salt was still in his shoes, not because he believed it was magic, but because it reminded him of the promise, of what he still hoped for, of what God had placed in his heart, even if no one else saw it. But the struggle didn't get easier. The voices around him still said he wouldn't make it, that he should try something else, that some people just aren't meant to go that far. And deep down, he started to wonder, what if they're right? What if this calling isn't for me? That's the weight of waiting on God's promise. It's not just about staying strong, it's about staying faithful when doubt screams louder than truth. At the same time, his coach was watching, silently, taking note, the way he kept showing up, the way he pushed himself, even without reward. And unknown to Michael, doors were starting to shift. Opportunities were beginning to move, but they wouldn't just be handed to him. He'd have to fight for them, again. C.S. Lewis once said that God whispers in our pleasures, but shouts in our pain. And this was one of those moments. the kind that makes or breaks a person, the kind where heaven leans in, waiting to see if you'll fold or rise. Michael's defining moment was approaching fast. A tryout, a game, a challenge, and everything, his faith, his effort, even the salt in his shoes, was about to be tested in ways he never expected. The day of the big tryout finally came. Michael had poured everything into this moment, his time, his energy, his belief. His shoes still had salt in them, now pressed deep into the soles from weeks of wear. He laced them up with trembling hands, not from fear, but from the weight of everything riding on this one shot. He walked onto the court with the fire of silent preparation burning inside him. He wasn't the tallest, he wasn't the strongest, but he was ready, or so he thought. The gym was packed with other players, all hungry for the same spot. Coaches with clipboards, whistles blowing, tension thick in the air. At first, Michael held his own. He moved fast, shot with precision, passed with vision. But just as he started to stand out, something unexpected happened. A sudden cramp twisted through his leg. His stride faltered. He tried to shake it off, but his body didn't respond. The countless hours of pushing himself, training without rest, had caught up. His energy dipped. His hands, once sure, began to tremble. Shots he had made hundreds of times before clanged off the rim. The whispers started again. Some coaches scribbled notes. Others looked away. Doubt returned like a shadow. This wasn't just a setback. It felt like a cruel joke. He had done everything right. He had believed, prepared, prayed. But in the moment that mattered most, it was like everything inside him was falling apart. From the sidelines, his mother watched, her heart in her throat. She had seen him rise from rejection before. But this looked different. This looked final. And for Michael, standing there, salt-filled shoes, aching muscles, clouded mind, it felt like the end of the road, like he was being stripped of every ounce of strength he thought he had. But that's when something shifted. Not in the gym, but in his spirit. A whisper, not from the crowd, but from deep within. A reminder of every morning he woke up before sunrise, every hour spent alone with a ball and a prayer, every step taken when no one believed. And just as he thought he couldn't go on, someone else stepped onto the court. Someone unexpected. And what they said next would change everything. Just when Michael thought he had nothing left to give, a tall figure in a dark jacket stepped onto the court. It was the assistant coach, someone he barely noticed before. He blew the whistle, stopping the game mid-play. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. He looked straight at Michael and said, "Kid, I've been watching you. Not just today, but every morning. You've been here before everyone else. You've been grinding, not for the applause, but because you love the game. That kind of heart, that kind of grit. We need that." The tension cracked. Michael stood frozen. He couldn't tell if this was real or another test. The coach motioned for him to step forward. "You're not just playing for a spot anymore," he said. "You're playing for something bigger. You've got something the others don't. Let's see if you've got one more play in you." Adrenaline surged through Michael's body. His legs still ached. His arms felt heavy, but he nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped back onto the court. One play. That's all he had. The ball was passed to him. He drove to the basket, weaving through defenders. The gym held its breath. And then, with the same determination he'd had since those first barefoot shots in the driveway, he jumped. The ball sailed. The buzzer rang. It went in. The gym erupted. Coaches stood. Players clapped. His mother's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't just a basket. It was a breakthrough. The rejection, the pain, the hidden effort. It all led here. He didn't just earn a spot. He proved that faith, mixed with effort, could turn even a setback into a setup. But just as he walked off the court, thinking it was all over, the head coach approached him. Calm, serious, he handed Michael a slip of paper and said, This isn't just about the team anymore." Michael unfolded it. A name, a school, a scout. Someone had been watching him all along, someone bigger. And in that moment, he realized the salt in his shoes wasn't just about one dream. It was preparation for something far greater than he ever imagined. And that was only the beginning. Michael stared at the paper in his hand, heart still racing. It wasn't just any name. It was a well-known college scout who had come quietly, unnoticed, just to see if the stories were true. The stories about a kid who never quit. A kid with salt in his shoes and fire in his soul. The coach gave him a nod, then turned away. No long speeches, no promises. Just that silent acknowledgement that everything Michael had pushed through had led to something real, something earned. As he walked out of the gym, his mother was waiting for him at the door. She didn't say much, just smiled, handed him his worn-out shoes and whispered, "Keep the salt." He looked down at them. They were old, scuffed, barely holding together. But now they meant more than any trophy or headline. They were proof of a journey, a quiet reminder that faith without action is incomplete, and that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest meaning. In the weeks that followed, the call came. The scout had seen enough. Michael was offered a spot, not just on a team, but in a future he once thought was out of reach. And it wasn't just because of his talent. It was because of his story, his effort, his persistence. That story of faith in action, of showing up when no one else does, of believing when no one else will, was what opened the doors. C.S. Lewis once said, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point." Michael's courage, tested again and again, had shaped him into more than an athlete. It had made him a symbol of what can happen when faith is lived out in the small things. The early mornings, the quiet work, the shoes with salt. And for anyone listening right now, maybe you're in that in-between space, waiting on a breakthrough, wrestling with rejection, questioning your calling. Maybe this story is for you. A reminder that God's promises often begin with preparation, that what you do when no one's watching still matters, and that even the most ordinary acts, like putting salt in your shoes, can become the foundation for something extraordinary. Because sometimes the smallest seeds of faith are the ones God uses to move mountains.